Yeah, so do programming, not farming. Okay, so how
Okay.
have you been going so far? How many people attend classes? I see about you.
Very
Expensive.
few people attend. It's expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
I
Very
thought you just
expensive.
buy a data bundle like
Expensive.
one gigabyte. All right. So we're going to start, and what I'm going to do is I want this to be interactive. So
Okay.
I am going to keep you, allow you to mute and unmute yourselves so that you can. That means like those talking in the background have to mute themselves because it's noisy backgrounds. If you can do it like that, then I don't have to mute all of you. But if it can't work, then I'll have to mute all of you. And in that case, if you want to say something, you'll maybe write to ask, you will say something, or you will put up your hand. I hope that works. Do a chat, or you can just signal that you don't say something. But let's first try the first method, which is allowing you to mute and unmute yourselves. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Who is the class rep? Is he here?
Yes, okay.
Who is that? Class rep?
Loy.
Yeah, I don't see the name here. Who? Loy? Roy?
Yeah. Yes. John Roy. Mugaga John Roy.
Well, I don't Roy, but here I see you're called Wilberforce.
No, there is Mugaga John Roy. He's the class rep.
Is he here?
Nangeso is there.
Nangeso is on. I've seen him.
Nangeso, Mugaga John Roy. Okay, that is good. Okay, so first things first, I sent out the course outline of what you're going to be covering. Have you gone through that?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Are there any
Just
issues?
read through.
Are there any issues with that? Okay, if you have any issues, you can type the issue and I will respond to it. The second thing is that at the time when they closed the university, we were supposed to start our presentations. Now I am going to change, and we're also supposed to do a test. We had even set the test, and we're ready to administer it by when they close the university. So instead of doing a test, the plan is to do your course to use your coursework to assess you. Fortunately, the coursework was well written and comprehensive, and I personally prefer coursework assessment. So coursework assessment doesn't mean that it is easy. It just means that you have a different way of being assessed. So I want to encourage you to use the remaining time that you have to make sure you work together to submit your coursework. I think I gave you a timeline based on what I sent. I think in the email, I think I gave you the first week of
November.
first week of October, first week of November, right? So work towards that timeline and submit your work. Do some good work such that get some good coursework marks, and use that for your final assessment. Okay. I am going to try as much as possible to make my lectures brief, but I want you to ask questions. That's why I'm unmuting. So make it interactive. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my chat on. And if you want to ask a question, just put the name and in the chat, and then I will put the name and say I want to ask you a question. Then I will look at the charts and give you an opportunity to ask the questions you have to ask. I hope that can work well for us. All right. So today's discussion is on user interface design. I'll just set it up. So for this topic on user interface design, I am looking at chapter 8 of the book that we've been using. I've also made a few modifications to add a few things that I think are important for you to know based on what I see happening in the industry. Okay? So that's what my presentation is about. So it has been said that never judge a book by its cover. But the truth is that we all judge books by their covers. Packaging is important. In fact, some will even say packaging is all that there is. We don't care how beautiful your code is in the background. What we care about is what we see, how you've packaged what you're showing us. So you should think of the user interface as the packaging. The only thing that we can see is the package. And so if your interface is not designed right, then your software, however powerful the algorithms are in the background, may not be of any use to us. Yes, we judge the books by the cover. That is human. And yes, packaging is important, and that is why user interface design is very important. But user interface design is just a subset of a much wider area called human-computer interaction. And so we look at what human-computer interaction is and try to understand the basic principles of what we call user-centered design. In other words, how do you design an application with a user at the center or in mind for the basis for what you're trying to do? We'll also explain how experienced interface designers perform their tasks, the things that you do when you're designing an interface, the do's and don'ts. Okay, the rules for successful user interface design. We shall also discuss the technologies that you can use for input and output. I'll also introduce to you the concept of data visualization and how that works. I'll also talk about how to design effective source documents and forms. A lot of systems nowadays have forms. So how do you make sure that the forms are picking information correctly and effectively? I'll also explain to you how to create printed output. How do you make sure that your outputs can be printed? I'll also explain to you an approach towards this, how you can do modular design or prototyping around the user interfaces. So this is all in the design phase. And the goal of system design is to build a system that is effective, that is reliable, and that is sustainable. In fact, in many cases, one of the things that you do before you even begin implementing a system is to try to design the interfaces, because that's the only way we can be able to know what is going on in your head. So you see the coursework I gave you? If you present me interfaces, I'll be able to know what you're talking about. You get it? But if you don't present me interfaces, how will I know what you're saying? But if you present interfaces, then I'll say, yeah, I now understand the kind of system these guys are talking about. So a system is effective if it supports the business requirements and meets the user's needs. In other words, An effective system is one that enables an organization or whichever entity asks for this system to meet its requirements or solves a problem, but then also enables the users to meet their needs. What does the user want? Ultimately, it is not what the boss wants, it is what the user wants. It is reliable if it handles input errors. In other words, if someone tries to make a mistake when they are making an input, it's able to pick that. Processing errors, this is better than the crash. When it's processing, it's able to know there's an error here and handle that. Hardware failures is a situation where you make sure that the system works with the hardware that's available. Sometimes, for example, you can have an application that cannot work with certain kind of devices, for example, mobile phones, because of the specifications like RAM, ROM, and stuff like that. So those are the hardware issues you're talking about, and human mistakes. So someone is saying they can't hear, but I think it's a local problem. So you will solve your problem. The others are hearing. Okay? All right. A software is maintainable. Like a word suggests, maintainable means that if you want to change something, you don't say, the requirements are over. You can't change. That means your software is not flexible. Scalable, if you want to extend it, extend it, for example, to work in other areas. You should be able to do that without having to change too much. And it should be very easy for you to modify your software. If your software is very hard to modify, then it's not built well. I asked you guys to mute your microphones when you are interacting with the background. Please mute them. Huh? All right. So these are just suggestions that the book gives, and like suggestions, the opinions of the author, and but I think they're good suggestions to think about. So how do you design your software to succeed? One of the things that you could do is to think like the user. Okay, so someone's asking a question. Jose, you can ask your question. I don't understand what you mean.
Sir, I wanted to ask. Hello, sir. I wanted to ask. I was asking that does this mean that all along we've been doing something like for the background, like for the management to understand, like the management of the organization, IT team, for us to understand. Now we are doing something. Now we are handling the part where it's like a customer maybe using the system.
No. I would say that all those are users. So the IT people, the managers, all those are users. When I talk about the user, it's not just customers. It's everyone who uses the system. Okay? So a user is anyone who has interaction with the system directly. That's the user we're talking about. All right. So think like the user. Let me assume that you're designing a software that is going to be used by, since many of you are farming, imagine you've come up with an app that is going to be used by the farmers who are rearing chicken. What are they called? Chicken farmers, to keep their records. So you should think like a chicken farmer. What kind of environment is he or she working in? What kind of education level are they, the guys who cover chicken? I don't think they're university graduates. Many of them, the owners may be university graduates, but many of the people who look after chicken will not be university graduates. So think like the guys who are looking after the chicken and design an application that can enable them to work within the context that they are operating. Yeah? So examine where the users provide input and receive output from. So think who this person who is feeding the chicken, you want him to record how much food he's giving to the animals. Where does he get the information from? And that is what we're talking about. Where does he get the information from? And how will he be able to measure the quantities that you're asking him for? Because for him, he may be measuring cups, where you're asking for kilograms, and that's the problem. Anticipate future needs and provide for flexibility. Of course, you should be able to think, this is what they need now, or what could they need in future. So you went to a farmer and he's keeping broilers. That's his current need. What if in future he's keeping layers? How will your application work when he has layers? Okay, that's what you're talking about, future needs. Because he's a chicken farmer, he may also have layers in future. Okay, so anticipate possible expansion, offer several alternatives, such that they can be able to pick from those alternatives. Manage data effectively. The system should be able to verify data as soon as possible. Don't allow users to put in wrong data. If you're looking for a telephone number, make sure you verify that the number is in the correct format, for example. If you're looking for the district, don't ask them to type the district. Give them a selection of districts that they can pick from. Okay? The data must be close to its source as much as possible. For example, if you're talking about the chicken app, if you want to record the feeding that you're giving the chicken, you should be able to record that on the farm. You don't design your application to work in such a way that your users need to first go to some internet cafe to record how much they have given. That's not right. A secure system must include audit trails. I think I can't emphasize that enough. You know that there was a recent hack with mobile money, and you guys were teaching these things and you're getting wiser, and also you're unemployed, so you're now beginning to become hackers instead of developers. Yeah. So they said it was an inside job, but an inside job definitely is one of the guys like you. So we need audit trails to be able to track who is doing what with the system. I hope that is clear. All right. So, what is the user interface? The user interface describes how users interact with the computer system. Of course, there is two-way communication. What the user puts into the system, provides the system, and what the system gives instructs the user. Okay, someone is asking what an audit trail is. And audit trail is this. What you do in an audit trail is that you record every action. So if someone enters a record, you put the name, the date, the time, and any other information, the username, of course. You store that information automatically in some log file somewhere. If someone edits or deletes the system, you do the same. I hope that explains what an audit trail is. So by keeping that information, we can be able to go and audit and say, okay, someone changed this information. Who changed it? When? And why? Okay? We had a problem at Makerere one time when we used to give you guys retakes, but time for graduation comes and we see you're graduating. And we begin, then the lecturers will begin saying, but that guy who is graduating, let me assume he's called Gabula Steven. Hmm? Gabula Steven has a retake. How come he's graduating? Then they go to the Chemical First Department, they say, what if you don't see any retake? Until they realized there were some people who were being given money to make these changes in the system. That's what security audits do. All right, so we get back to user interface. I talked about two-way communication. In a user-centered system or many systems nowadays, they are very interactive. So the distinction between input and output can be very, very small. It's a bit like a video game. If you're playing a video game, what is an input, what's an output? Because it's an interactive thing, isn't it? So your input could be an output, your output could be an input because it's highly interactive. So many applications nowadays, it's not just about input, output. It's the fact that they are interactive. So interactive systems is the way that many applications are going, yeah? So user interface design is a subdomain of a much larger domain that we call human-computer interaction that gives or describes the relationship between computers and people who use them to perform their jobs. Okay? And the general objective of human-computer interaction is to create a user-friendly design that is easy to use and easy to learn. So let me explain use and learn. Many times you guys are downloading apps. How many of you actually go and read the user manuals? I'm thinking of getting TikTok on my phone, so I'm wondering, where is the manual for TikTok? Does anyone know?
Huh?
Of course it's somewhere. But in most cases you want to just get the app and use it. So you have to make sure that it is easy to learn. So whoever designed TikTok have to make sure that it is easy to learn. You just need to download the app and that's it. That is what I mean by ease of learning. And then ease of use. Of course, I'm sure they edit the videos and do a number of things. But to edit a video should not require a person who is doing a bachelor's degree in IT. In fact, many of these apps have become very popular because of the ease at which they make video editing. You can enhance your videos and put text and all kinds of things very easily without having to use the kind of applications that we used to use those days, done by the video editing experts. So that is why these apps are becoming very popular, because they allow you to, they make it easy for you to use, to learn and to use. And sometimes that is all that it takes, having an app that is easy to learn and to use. So in order for you to achieve that, there are certain things that you can do. By the way, one of the biggest deficiencies that we have in the IT industry right now, in my opinion, is that we do not have good interface designers, because it requires a lot of imagination to come up with a good interface. And for some of you, if you were taught your fine art very well, maybe it will be useful here. But you find someone who did fine art in HSC, but the interface is designing, then I wonder, what did they teach you in fine art? I don't know. But anyways, my point here is that it is important that that user interface design is an art. Okay? There is no formula. So it's not a science, it's an art. There is no formula that you can use to say, okay, when you design a good interface design, let A add B, take away C, and you get D. That's a good interface. No, it's an art. But there are concepts or principles that you can use, and you are calling them habits, to be able to design good interfaces. One is understand the business. Every time you're designing a solution for somebody, understand the business. So if you're trying to design a solution for chicken farmers, understand what chicken farming is and how it is done. Don't go there and someone tells you this is not a broiler, it's a broiler, and you're like, a broiler? You never heard the word broiler and you're designing an app for farmers? That can be very funny, right? So, what I can say is understanding the business simply means get intimate with the way things are done. Get intimate with the processes, get intimate with the context and the environment in which the business is operating. Okay? So if you go to an organization, for example, find out what the organization is about, what are the goals, objectives, what is their vision, what is their mission, organogram, how they are organized, who are their customers, who are their competitors, what they want to achieve from the application. Those kind of questions will help you to understand the business. Maximize graphical effectiveness. Maximize graphical effectiveness. So, what I mean by graphical effectiveness is that try as much as possible to use the interface that you have effectively, such that you enable people to learn quickly. And we're going to look at that in detail. Think like a user. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the concept of persona, but I think I mentioned it one time in class. And if you didn't Google it, find the word persona and user-centered design, and go and Google it. But what personas do is that they teach you how to think like the user. And so when you're designing your solution, approach it from the user. If you're designing an application, for example, that is going to help adolescent girls. You guys, I told you keep mute. You are going to design an application that is going to help adolescent girls to get help, because you're being told that teenage pregnancy is complex. Okay, so I'm going to mute everybody. Let me just mute everybody. So from now on, I have to unmute you to ask your question. So you just type your name and then the question, and then I will unmute you because there's a lot of interruption. Okay, some people have asked questions. Someone's asking, they failed to get the course on Muele. I've also failed to log on to Muele. I tried the option of getting my password back, but it didn't work. So as soon as I'm able to do that, I will put the materials there. But for now, I'm going to send all your materials to the class web, and you can send it to your group. Okay? So I was telling you an example that if you're designing an application that is going to help adolescent girls seek help in case they get pregnant, or help around STDs or something like that, you have to think like the adolescent girl. What is she thinking about? In what state is she in? What are her fears? What are her aspirations? Why has she come for help? Such that you design an interface to be able to respond to her need. Okay, that's what we mean by thinking like a user. Okay, sorry, I had an interruption. So another habit that you should try is to use models and prototypes. Can I ask you to type in this chat if you've used any model, any prototyping tool? Just type and I see. What have you guys used? Anyone? Someone has used Blender, Azure, or Arctia? That one says just in mind. I think it's just in mind, yeah? Yeah? Yeah, so I see that you guys are on the right track. Many of these are actually quite powerful tools. I think I like just in mind as well. I haven't tried it, but I haven't really used it. I use mine, it's called Balsamic. I'll just type it in the chat as well. It's easy to use. But many of them work in the same way, yeah? Many of them work in the same way. So use those ones to develop your prototypes and show the user what you're trying to do. So I'm expecting you guys to submit your prototypes with the coursework that I gave you, right? So that I can know what you're trying to do, okay? So the next thing is focus on usability. So usability, there are some guidelines that you can use for usability. For example, the layout, what goes where, the home page, what should be on the home page, yeah, navigation and stuff like that. Okay. Invite feedback. Don't take the solution of the client and say, look, this is the system, please pay me. As much as possible, allow the users to see what you're designing and get feedback from them. And document everything. Yeah, keep everything documented. Your approved sketches, the storyboards and stuff like that. Document them. Don't just go straight and begin coding. Say, put a button here and do this, then you go and bring the coding. No. First, document it, update your designs, and then you go and implement it. I hope I make my point there. Because many developers prefer to just code. So you go to a meeting, they tell you change here, change there, then you go and implement it in code. What I'm trying to say is update your sketches, and then go and change it in code, such that when you produce your final system, it tallies with what you have in your designs. So update your designs. Okay? So someone is asking, are prototypes due on Friday? When I talk about prototypes, I'm not talking about the system. I'm talking about the interface design. Okay? So it is due, yes, the interface design, not the system. Don't ask me to develop a system. I'm telling you to imagine your system and develop the interfaces. So these are some guidelines that elaborate on the points that we were just talking about. So easy to learn and use. We are saying focus on the design objective. If I am designing a system for the farmers, poultry farmers, to enter their records of their feeding, what is the objective of that design, of that system? Because if you don't understand the objective, then you will not know what you want to show them. So please understand the objective of the design. Okay? Make it easy to understand and to remember. If you put too many things, they're hard to remember. So you should put too many things, and the things you put should really mirror the working environment that they are working in, the way the people work. Okay? That's what we're talking about. The commands and actions and system responses to be consistent and predictable. So if you, for example, creating an icon for people to enter the feed, if they're using the buckets to give the measurements, so put a picture of a bucket such that whoever looks at it knows that this is now feed, because I use a bucket for feeding. But for you, if you put a picture of a weighing scale, then it becomes a problem. Okay, so it should be consistent and predictable. If someone makes an error, don't say, it's too late. You made an error, and that's it. It should be possible for the user to undo what they've done. They should not commit suicide because they made an error. Label the controls appropriately. That is buttons, icons, etc. If I should just give a comment about buttons, many of you, when you design your buttons, every button is called enter. Press enter, press enter. Why am I entering? Yeah? You should use appropriate words. So, if someone is recording the feed that is given to the birds, the button at the bottom should read submit the record. Okay, submit the feed record, or submit feed record, or submit something like that, such as someone knows that when I do this, I am actually submitting this feed record. But if you just say enter, that's a problem. They won't understand why you ask them to enter. Yeah, because some of them might even get to go to their houses, thinking that you're asking them to get into the house. So enter can be meaningless. That's the point I'm making. Yeah. So I've talked about images the users can understand. By the way, let me ask a question, and you can take your answers. Why do you think we need to put pictures or images in our application? Can I see some answers typed in? So someone says images attract user attention. That's correct. For those who cannot read, that's correct. Those who cannot read can use pictures to know what to do. Yeah. Yeah, it makes the interface more attractive. Yeah, easier for someone to understand what's not going on, to illustrate something. Yeah. So you guys have the right answers. I can see you've been revising a lot, huh? Or you probably are ahead of me. Okay. They also advise that you should show all commands in the menu list. Sometimes your system can be very hard for us to understand what is going on. But if you can show all the things that I can do with your menu list, like you do with Windows, if you go to Windows, say Microsoft Word, everything you can do with Word is on that menu list. That's the same approach you can take. Make sure that everything you can do with the application can be found in the menu list and organize it properly, such that someone knows the categorizations. So for example, I might say, okay, how do I change the fonts, yeah, of my document? I should be able to know that, okay, that is under editing, so I should go to the edit menu, find something called fonts, and all those kind of things. So make sure that within the user interface, you provide a list of all the things that people can be able to do, okay? And make it easy for them to return back to where they were when they leave that place where they were, okay? Now, so someone is keeping on typing things. It's telling me be lenient while you're marking. This whole user interface thing is going to be hard because some of us are really far apart from each other. We cannot come up with work as excellent as we do while on campus. I don't know what you're telling me. Just do for me a good job. Of all people, you guys should be able to know that COVID has changed things. So this online learning is probably going to be new normal. So let's embrace work online. I'm actually training people online nowadays. Many of my clients, I train them online. Yeah? So that is the new normal. So get comfortable working online and produce the results. Okay? Jose, I hope I've answered you. All right. So another thing that you can do is use alphabetical menu lists for people to find things easily. Yeah, don't make people waste time. But I was going to ask you guys a question. In what ways can the user interface increase on the work or reduce on the work that someone has to do? Give me an example of an example of a way that a user interface can increase on the work. Because these systems are created for people to work. So what are some of the ways that the way you design your user interface can increase on the work? Give me an example. And you can type it. Okay, I'm just giving a pause to get to see your answers. Yeah, so Wilberforce, I need you to give me an example. What do you mean should be easier? Give me an example of an user interface that will make it difficult for someone to work. Someone was saying part of the question, give me an example of a user interface that will make it difficult for someone to work. So for example, if you are designing a user interface for someone to enter the item someone is buying in the supermarket, how can you make it difficult for someone to work? How can you increase on their workload by the way you've designed? So I want an example. I don't want you to use complicated things. Just give me an example. Yeah, so Rachel gives a good example. If you ask them to enter the name each time of the item each time rather than scanning or searching, yeah, you could allow the system to search or scan, or instead of asking them to enter the name, yeah. What other responses do I have? I don't get what Catherine is saying. You say if you don't understand the language. I think in this case, I'm assuming that they understand how this thing works, but it's just creating too much work for them. It's becoming too cumbersome to use. Yeah. So someone says by asking for passwords, make it difficult. That is true. That is why many apps nowadays, once you have it on your phone, it's your choice to log out if you want, but it's always logged in. So if you have WhatsApp, you don't have to ask for a password all the time. That's why they design like that, to make it easy for you to work, yeah? All right, so your interface is too wordy, people are reading too many things, that's right. Scrolling up and down, if your interface requires too much scrolling up and down, that's also a problem. If someone is entering a lot of data and you have to scroll up and down, that's a problem, because scrolling you have to keep on changing the whatever. So that could be a problem. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are a number of things that you can do. So that's what the kind of things we're talking about. Enhancing user productivity. Yeah. So we are also talking about enabling the users to have a help function and feedback. So I put a help function for those who want to get. I use the help function in Excel a lot because sometimes I want to do something in Excel and I'm like, how do I create a pivot table? That's what Excel helps us to do. So you go to Excel, you do the help, and there's also a lot of Google, you can Google it. So make sure that you provide useful help functions. Yeah. Also provide them with feedback. I'm just picking something that I think are important or that I want to emphasize. If the processing is going to take a very long time, alert the user that it is still processing is still happening. So for example, if you're uploading your pictures onto your social media, you usually get an alert because your pictures could be many and they're taking a long time to upload. So you get an alert. So it's okay, take time, but let us know that you're working. Don't just keep quiet. Then I upload again pictures, then you get quiet, then I upload again, and after 5 attempts, I have 5 sets of pictures uploaded. And I'm like, what on earth is this? Yeah. So alert the user if the processing is going to take a long time. And if you're displaying a message on an alert, leave it on the screen for people to read. Don't just show it and it scrolls off. It goes off. So make it easy for them to read and understand. And also let them know if they are actually successful or not. If someone is trying to add a record on the daily feeding routine of his chicken, when he clicks on the button, add record, let them know that the record has been added. Don't just keep quiet. Because if the app just keeps quiet, the man may not know whether it has been added or not. Yeah? All right. So, this is just an example of a menu that has been proposed for a customer tracking system. You can see it is tracking customers, and it starts with some kind of hierarchy. There are customers, orders, and products. So they're trying to say, organize the information in some kind of hierarchy and provide the things that they can do according to those hierarchies. And actually, this can be picked from your function decomposition diagram. We looked at that in the earlier lectures. So by being able to do something like this, provide this kind of hierarchy, you enable someone to know where to find what. So someone knows I'm dealing with orders, I can't find it under customers. Yeah? I'm dealing with products, I can't find it under orders. Okay? That's what we're talking about. I'm going to discuss the one on creative and attractive layout and design. I can't emphasize enough. If you're the kind of person who clashes in your dress code, then you need to think about how to make sure that your designs are not reflecting your dress code. So there's some colors that match and some colors that don't match. So just note the colors that match. Yeah? And then also think about the colors on the background. So sometimes you have a picture of the sky and the text is white. So put white on a light blue background, you can't read anything. That is not good. So make sure that you're very mindful of those kind of things. Okay? So there are a number of guidelines that are given there, and in English, I won't read all of them, but I'll just emphasize the ones that I think are good for you to know. Avoid using complex terms and technical jargon. Don't use your database fields. UUID. And someone's like, what is a UUID? Do you know what UUID is? You guys know what a UUID is? A UUID is usually a system generated ID that helps you to identify items uniquely. If you want to create IDs in a database, you can use UIDs. So don't ask users or provide users such complex things. They don't understand. So things that are for database, keep them there. Variable names, don't use variable names, for example. Keep the variable names in the database. And use only the things that are relevant. Okay? So the first screen is usually the most important. Make sure that it is enhanced and make sure that it is it meets the objectives, that it's like a sitting room. Usually the first screen gives a summary of what the application is about. Okay. Okay, what you see here is an example of a user interface that has been designed, and according to them, they think this is a well-designed user interface. Do you think it is good? What are some of the things that you like? You can type them in the chat. What do you like about this interface? Do you have any criticism of this interface? What do you think is not good? I'm waiting to see what are your... Okay. I like your criticism. Okay, let me read them. The search function is not good. There is a search to find a student and there's a pop-up. Okay. What do you think? So don't you suggest what could have been done differently? Yeah, so what could have been done differently? Yeah. The colors are boring, it's congested. Wow. Okay. Many abbreviations. ST, yeah? You know what ST means? That's right. MI, what is MI? Too wordy, dull backgrounds, it's ugly. Hey, man, it's confusing. It's not neat, plain and boring. I am going to assess you guys also. I'm going to assess yours. So I'll also write yours. Eh? So ultimately, they say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But we can also say that beauty is beauty. When you see it, you know it. So I hope that when I see yours, I will see beauty. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to talk about data entry screens. Your data entry screens are used for, that's where we call forms. Eh? So usually the best way of doing this is allow the screen, the cursor, to be only in the locations where the user needs to interact with the screen, okay? If the user needs to interact with the screen, it should not be possible for them to select anything. So the cursor should not be able to go there, okay? If they want to cancel what they are doing or they want to do something else, they want to leave the screen, okay? For many screens, you may want to have some help text that gives some description. For example, if I asked you to enter your CGPA, current CGPA, and you know what CGPA is, then it will be possible for you to give a help text for someone to understand what CGPA is, okay? Allow users to change, delete, edit the records. Usually when you are designing a form, try to match the paper document that you get. So when you go and you go to an organization, they will ask them for documents, and if they see a form, okay, if you see a form, try to design your user interface in the same way that the form is, because usually the form gives you a good way of arranging your data items. So use input masks. Input masks are things that restrict user access. There was a time we were designing some applications and we used to ask them to put telephone number. But we realized that people were putting all kinds of things and the format was not correct. So many of the numbers that we were putting were wrong. So we decided to put an input mask. The input mask required that if you're putting a telephone number, it has to be in a certain format. And because of that input mask, we were able to get more accurate numbers that we could use to call back. So what am I trying to say here? Use input masks whenever possible to make sure that you're getting accurate data. Okay? Sometimes, if someone is say making a registration, if you're registering for your semester, if you're registering for your semester, if you're entering, for example, the courses you're going to do the semester and all the information they need from you, before you submit those things to the system, you should display the information and allow the user to confirm. Okay, someone is asking, what's an input mask? An input mask is a restriction that you put to prevent the user from giving you the wrong information. So for example, if you're entering a date and you want the formats month, day, month, year, you put that as a mask, such as someone in the month, day, year. Okay? Because both of them are dates, but they mean different things. Okay? All right. I think those are examples of input masks there. You can be able to ask for characters to be displayed, and these online they are what they call regex expressions. Let me type it here. You can use those regex expressions in forms to restrict what kind of inputs the user provides. So there are a number of things that you can do to validate whether the information you're getting is okay. Sequence check. You did semester 2. Now you want to register for semester 4. The sequence is not correct. Okay? So you should go to check sequence check. Are you registering for the right semester? Okay? Existence check. You are asking for courses that do not what? Exist. Why are you registering for courses that are not going to be taught this semester? That's what I mean by existence check. So it means you just can't list all the courses. It means that the courses that you list have to be specific to the person who is registering, such that you know what's available for that person. I hope that makes sense. Okay? The other type check that is obvious. Range check. Someone asks you your age and you put 2. How can you be a university student and you're 2 years? That's impossible. So if you are asking university students their age, I think the youngest among you is what? 22? That the youngest age at university nowadays? I'm not sure. But anyway, someone says 18. No, that's not true. When you go to university, you should be at least 19. All right, so make sure that if the youngest age is 18, you can make sure that you check if someone puts an age less than 18, then they can what? They can the system can flag that or issue a warning and say, are you sure you're 18 or you're 16 like Joanita says? I think it's not acceptable to be 16 at campus. Reasonableness. So you ask someone, how many birds do you have? And he says 50. How many eggs do you collect in a day? And he says 200. What kind of chicken are those? Is that reasonable? That someone with 50 birds gets 200 eggs a day? The chicken are laying 4 or 5 times a day. Is that possible? That's what you mean by reasonableness, okay? Validity check. For example, districts, if someone districts or sub-counties, you can do validity such as someone enter a district that don't exist in what? In Uganda. Okay? Combination check. This is usually performed on more than one field. Eh? So for example, you ask someone, what's your gender? And they put male. Then the next question is, are you pregnant? And they say yes. That's not valid. It's not yet happening. Men don't get pregnant. So that's what we mean by combination check, that if you combine 2 questions, it should not be possible for you to understand. And then of course batch controls. Now batch input. Batch input is something you need to think about very well. Batch input usually is when you upload, say, a text file or something in Excel. So let me say, for example, I want to upload your marks. Instead of uploading one by one in the system, I compile all your results and I do a batch input. But you have to verify the records in that input. Otherwise, it will be a problem if I upload marks for students whose registration numbers not exist, for example, or courses that not exist in the what? In the system. That's what I mean by batch input, batch controls. You have to put in place all those kind of batch controls. Okay? All right. Now, reduce on input volume. Don't ask people for information that's already in the system. If you're registering for a semester and you give me your registration number, I know your name, the date of birth, the district you come from, and all that information they ask you when they're profiling new students. So I don't have to ask you that question again. So don't ask people things that they already are in the system. But also do not design your application to ask for them from them things that you don't use. Whatever you ask, you should be able to use it. If you're not using it, don't ask for it. Okay? Don't input constant data. For example, what is the VAT rate? We all know VAT is 18%. So why are you asking someone to put VAT rate they're using? It's 18%. So apply it. Don't ask them to put VAT. That should be a system setting. If it changes, the administrator will go and change the setting somewhere. We don't ask the users to enter the VAT rate they're using, because that's their constant. Okay? So those are some examples of things that you can look out for. So, if there's anything that you should remember today, it is the word giggle, which is garbage in, garbage out. Many times people think that when you design an application, the computer does everything for you. But what we always tell people is that if you give me garbage, you'll also get garbage. So don't put in garbage. And so your system should, as much as possible, limit the amount of garbage that comes in. Okay? So a good form layout can help you limit on the amount of garbage that you're getting in, and making sure that your source documents triggers appropriate input actions that fit the transactions can also help you reduce on the garbage. So this is an example of a design of a source document. It's another placement form. Like I said, you have a heading zone and you put the heading of the form, control the things that you can do with the form, for example, filters and stuff like that. Instruction zone, instructions to the user. The body zone is where you can put the main form, the things that you want. And totals. So if someone's selecting courses they are doing, for example, or someone is indicating the fees they are paying, you can put the total fees down here. Or if each course has a fee, you can put the totals down there. That's what I mean by total zone. And then the authorization zone can be down there, where whoever needs to, where they can put the submit or whatever authorization they want to put. Yeah. So this is just a general layout that has been proposed to use. Sometimes you want to print. In fact, many times you should think about that this report needs to be printed, and many times the answer is yes. Think about printing, and if you want to print, think about why you want to print it, who is going to use it, and how they're going to use it, such that you provide it appropriately for them. Okay? There are some documents that we call turnaround documents. Turnaround documents are documents that you print from the system, go and collect, or go and use them to collect data as input in the system. So for example, you could talk about the tags that you scan, yeah, that you scan. For example, scanning products, you can do those from the system and use them to record the products that have been bought. Those are what we call turnaround documents. So the next bit that I'm going to discuss is on the types of reports that you can have. Detailed reports, usually they have many more lines and they are trying to show details of what is going on than transactional. These detailed reports are usually used by the transactional staff or the people on the ground to see what has been going on. So yeah, so the receipts are registered, for example, is needed by the accountant to know who has paid and who has not paid, how much got paid. Exception reports are the ones that display any anomalies. So for example, you may want a report that just shows me people who have not paid. I'm told you guys haven't paid school fees. So maybe the accountant needs an exception report to know those that should not sit exams. That's an exception report. Okay? So instead of printing everybody, they print the ones that have a certain criteria. And summary reports usually used by middle managers or senior managers to get an overview of what is happening. How many sales have we made? How many customers have we worked with? How many orders have we received? Those are called summary reports. Okay? Over time. We were talking about involving users, so do your mockups, okay? And we're going to talk about, so these are some report design principles. We just go to the sample report. This is an example of the reports. You can see from this report that it's giving some kind of summary of it's actually not a summary. It's giving details of each staff and how many hours they have worked and the total. Maybe this is used by the HR to determine how much to pay. Okay. The next section that I want to do, this one I've added in your lectures. It's not in the book, but I've added this section to try to interest you on one of some of the latest trends in as far as designing system is concerned, and we call them interactive reports or visual dashboards. What do you mean by this? By visualization, we mean that you are converting raw data to a form that is viewable and understandable by humans. So, for example, this site gives you all the sites someone has visited, websites someone has visited, and this one here gives you it's a network diagram that shows you the sites they visited, the pages they visited in that site, and how they progressed. So which one is easier to understand? Of course, the network diagram is easier to understand. So there are certain kinds of reports that cannot be easily explained using statistical data or graphs. And usually we use more visual interactive reports to bring out the meaning. And this is becoming very important as data increases, because many people are trying to visualize and understand the data. And there are different types of examples. There are those that are geodata, so geodata mapping. Okay, so this one here could be mapping. This one here is mapping the immigration populations in the U.S. So you can see different populations and the areas they settled. Yeah, as they immigrated into the U.S. This is a tree map. It's an example of a tree map. Can be used, for example, if you want to give the allocation that your guild has done on the funds they have received from Makerere, how Makerere uses its funds. You can use a tree map. So that a big box here tells you that, for example, we're using this in internships, we're using this in staff salaries, and then of course you can have the different headings that give you the areas that you're talking about. So if you're talking about staff salaries or staff remuneration, what are some of the areas? Pensions, NSSF, or whatever, you can be able to highlight the different expenditures. So a tree map is actually a very, very useful tool for visualizing a lot of data and contextualizing it. Another one could be a trend analyzer. I think I'll just give an example of this one. So I had opened the website. Let me just open the site. Yeah. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Are you seeing the? I've minimized the lecture. Are you seeing the browser? Yes. Okay, that's good. So I went to this site and I said, okay, let me check out Uganda. How has Uganda progressed over time in as far as poverty is concerned? So they have a trend analyzer here, and you can see in 1800, you can see, I think there was no data. Then they began picking some data showing how rich the country, how many people, how rich the country was. So measuring GDP. And you can see the GDP is growing. And then if you look at your parents, they'll tell you in the good days of the 1960s, things were good. Then when Idi Amin came around the 80s, 70s and 80s, things began to decline. Then the Museveni was saying in 86, around 86, you see the GDP is rising. And right now we are 2019, and you can see it's much up there. So things are much better than they were before. But this is an example of a visual interface that you probably would not have created very easily using the traditional statistical tools. And these kinds of interfaces, there are a number of tools that you can use. So I will be able to share with you some examples. If you really want to get into this space, then you should try to look out these tools. Okay? So the components on a visual interface, we use color, size, texture, proximity, annotations, interactivity like zoom, filtering, animations to try to explain the interface. So the stages that we have are, the first stage is acquire. Acquire means you get the data. So this is the raw data, how it looks like, basically numbers. Then you pass, filter, mind, represent, refine, and interact. So parsing means you index, okay? And you say, okay, for Alaska data, I'm going to give it this index, whatever. So, or maybe if you're talking about data around farmers, then you're going to index your farmers and say farmer A, this kind of data, this kind of index. Farmer A 2018, this kind of index. So you also can break it according to years and stuff like that. That's what you call parsing. Then you filter what you've broken down, or you mine it. So you try to get meaning. You write queries to either make computations or to filter it. Then find another appropriate way of representing it. You can use a map, you can use a graph, you can use anything, but find a way of representing it. And then refine your representation to be able to get the final product that you can be able to display on the interface. And then, of course, allow for interactivity, allow for users to interact with it and be able to get different perspectives of what they're saying. Okay? So there are a number of tools that you can use. The languages have C++, Java, Python. Python is very good with this. Yeah. You can use packages like R of MATLAB. I don't know if you've come across any of these, but these are very good packages. We've used a lot of D3. There's also processing.js. There's Google Charts. That's also very popular. You can use Google Charts. And you can use Java and Flash, but this is becoming rarer. So now there are a number of tools like D3, JS3, HiCharts, a number of libraries that do these kind of things, and you should check them out. The last bit of our discussion, this is the last bit, is going to be on the output technologies that you can use. Not everything that you design should be output onto the screen. Because not everyone goes into your system to log in. So you should be able to think of creative ways of providing output to the users. For example, you can send an email. Output listing could be an email. Yeah? That gives a summary of their transactions at the end of every month. That's a good output. Instead of asking users to log into the system, you could just get an email. Or could be an SMS that reminds them of something they need to do. Or could be all kinds of things. Eh? So there are a number of things I want to think about. It could be a blog, or it could be a newsletter that is sent. Yeah. It could actually be on a mobile phone. Nowadays we use an IM. It could be an IM on the phone that allows the user to know that, oh, okay, there's something that needs my attention here. So there are a number of things that you can think about, but I won't go through all of them. I think what I will try to do is go through this graph, this table. This table says, traditionally, this is what people have been using. Keyboards, mouse, pointing devices, microphones. But now, and this is where I want you guys to pick a lot of interest, is that there is a lot of things that you can think about because these things are powerful. Body motion detection. They are on your phones, you know that. Those sensors are on your phones. So you can use body sensors as inputs. Voice recognition. You can use voice recognition as input. You don't have to allow people to type. When I'm going home, I just say, okay, go. Huh? What's the best route home? Actually, Google has popped up as soon as I said that. And it's ready.
To get home by car is via Kampala. It's for the expressway and will take about 45 minutes in light traffic.
Apparently, Google was listening. So I was giving my lecture and I said, okay, Google, and Google popped up. Right? So that's what I mean by voice recognition. That's an input. There are a number of things like RFID tags that you can use. Optical recognition. Basically, talk about sensors and Internet of Things. That's a place that you should think about right now. In your generation, that's the things you should be talking about. But if you want to even go further, you should look at emerging inputs or emerging things that you can use like neural networks, artificial intelligence, brain-computer interface. You know what? You heard of BCI? They can put something on your computer and they can know what you're thinking. You heard of that? Someone's asking me whether there are fire detectors in the building, in the main building. Those could have been in food devices. Fire detectors that alert the police station in case of a fire. Those kind of inputs are already there, and people use them in more advanced countries. For us, you have to make some noise to alert the fire guys. You don't have those, but yeah, those are commonly used in many countries. They have fire detectors that actually link to the fire stations. So, but I'm talking about BCI, this technology. If you've not heard about it, you try to Google it. BCI is technology that can be used to read your brain. In fact, people have even experimented with things like your movement of your eyes. You can use your eyes to scroll your computer. Like when you move your eyes, the computer automatically scrolls when you're reading. I think you've heard of those kind of things. So those are kind of things that are there, right? Another interesting one that you to look at is virtual environments for learning, especially. So you can take someone through a tour of Uganda's game parks using virtual environments instead of pictures. You can take them through some virtual environment where they can tour the game parks, and then based on the virtual environment, they can choose the game park to go to. That can be a product that you're providing. 3D technology, you can be able to create things, real things, using 3D technology. Okay? Okay? You can be able to create things using 3D. You can, for example, print a number of things, yeah, using 3D technology, objects. So those are some technologies that you should explore. Okay, I think I've talked about many of them. So when you're talking about outputs, you should always think about security, because an output is something that someone can be able to take. So, for example, some books are online, but you cannot read. You cannot save them, and you cannot download them. You cannot read them online. If you are on Netflix, can you download the movie and give it to somebody who doesn't have Netflix? Is that possible? You guys, I'm giving examples that you can relate to. So that we call output control. So they make sure that if you're going to download the Netflix movie, you're only going to watch it on your phone or your device and with a Netflix account. If you don't have an account, you can't watch their movies. And you can see even for things like the PlayStation, you cannot install a game on one device and install it on another one because it installs on the other one. So there are all these kind of issues that are put in place to manage security. And so when you're talking about outputs, you're talking about security. Some people have put diskless workstations that you can't put a USB, can't put an external disk, so you can't copy anything from what you're seeing. Others don't know how to even do print screen. You can't print the screen, or you can't copy and paste because they are trying to protect copyright. Okay, so that's what you mean by output control. So you should always make sure that you think about output control, but also think about input controls. Apparently, the compromise that they had on Mobile Buddy was through one of the aggregators, and someone was able to send an input request to the bank to transfer money. So the bank received the request and said this is okay and sent the money. So you should be very careful about security controls, data security policies that you put in place to make sure that your data is secure. In fact, many times people don't want to use Ugandan companies to develop their applications because they think that what we do is insecure. So I was a bit unhappy that the company that they are choosing for vulnerability in this mobile money thing is a Ugandan company. What these businesses will probably do is to get the companies from South Africa or whatever do these kind of things and making mean that you guys lose jobs. So don't take security lightly. It can be what makes you or breaks you. Okay? So when you're coming up with the application, you can choose to either do modular design in a structured way, so you create modules, or you can also choose to do prototyping, where you create a prototype and then people give comments and then you refine it until you will final. But every time you create a website, the first thing you should do is create a prototype. Because if you get them to appreciate and agree with your designs, then it's easy for you to create a design that meets their needs. Okay? So when you're prototyping, usually you do some planning, then you do analysis, then you implement the design. So planning is what you're going to do, analysis is how you're going to do it, design, okay, explaining what, how things are related, and then go back, review the changes again, that's the planning, then go through the same stage until you have a prototype that is ready to implement. Okay? So you can either do floral prototyping, where you, this is for UIs. What you mean by UI, floral prototyping is that you create a design, and if you don't like it, you throw it away and create another one. Okay? Or if you're doing system prototyping, that one you are developing a system, and so you're not throwing away what you've done, you are improving it. Okay? Because you're creating a working model of an information system. By so doing, you avoid misunderstanding between the developers and the clients. You can spend 6 months or a year doing a system and they refuse to pay you because they don't like it. If you don't want to get frustrated, be very careful about how you do it. Yeah? So it helps you to get the specifications properly. People can evaluate your work and give you feedback. And then you can also know how to train and test your application and reduce the risk of failure if you prototype. This is some of the benefits. What do you like cramming? These are things to cram for the exam. I know you like cramming. Someone's asking me, give us the test that you're going to give us so that we can know how you're going to set. So you can know how to cram, where to read and whatever. And I want to answer you and tell you that read the book, answer the question at the end of the book. That is the best way to prepare for the exam. Okay? Those questions will help you to see how we're going to set. Because also as we're going to set from there, we're also going to read a look at those questions and see how to modify them. So read those questions and understand and try to answer them in your groups. Prototyping has certain problems. These include the fact that you're moving very fast to create a prototype. You can overlook certain things, okay? And you may not be able to see it until the file system is finished. Then you realize, oh, you didn't think about something. Sometimes not all requirements are picked, especially the requirements are not functional, because when you're doing prototype, you're focusing on user, on functional requirements. So some requirements are hard to pick, like reliability, maintainability, and stuff like that, because that's not your focus. The prototype can become a bit. It can really move away from the original designs, and it makes it very difficult for you to continue with it because it becomes too buggy and hard for you to manage. If the clients want to make a lot of changes in the prototype, the cost can be very high. If you always spend a lot of time developing the prototype and want to make a lot of changes, the cost can be very high. And sometimes, by the way, this is one thing I've faced with my clients. The clients do not know when to stop the prototyping phase to go to the implementation phase. So you're in the implementation phase, and you're towards the end, you're even in the system for 1.5 years, they say want to make changes. And you're like, guys, this is no longer prototyping, we are now in the maintenance phase. So if you want these changes to be made, we have to discuss new terms of reference. So that's one of the problems. The clients get used to making changes and they don't know when to stop. Okay? So in summary, what we talked about today, we've said that the purpose of system design is to create a model of a system that satisfies the design requirements that were defined during the system analysis phase. And we are saying that the user interface must be based on the perspective of the user. So you must understand the user and understand their perspective, how to design an appropriate interface. And we've said that the number of reports that you can be able to create from the system, and those can be detailed reports, exception reports, or summary reports. We've also talked about the zones that you can use in a document. Yeah, where to put the headings, where to put the controls, instructions. That is for both input and output. Talk about the different input and output methods that you can use to capture data and to display the input method you can use to capture data. And we also talked about the security and controls that you can put in place to make sure that everything goes fine. So now, that is the end of my lecture. I am going to allow you to unmute. And if anyone of you has a comment or question, you can say it. If not, then we shall close the lecture. So I am going to allow you to unmute yourselves. So if anyone of you has a comment or question, you can say it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, now about the tests, I was requesting you send in at least it gives us an overview how we expect the questions to look like, not exactly to cram them, but just to see how it should, because I expect the test to be like something to introduce us to what we expect at the end of the exam.
Okay, I will check it out, especially with my colleagues, that we have said it, and let them know that I'm saturating the test that we had set, so that you can look at it. That's okay. But like I told you, if you consider on that, they said the test was set based on our understanding that you were at the beginning of the course. So, and you had only 1 hour. But now you have 3 hours and the course is coming to an end, so the approach may be different. But I'll give you, I just don't want to bias you too much, okay?
Okay, it's okay. Thank you.
Are you worried about the exam?
Yes, of course, because we've never done any exam inside. So, of course, we don't know what to expect. We're a bit worried.
Have you looked at the previous years?
No, that's the problem. It's very hard to get side past papers. I don't know why.
Okay, I'll see. I'll see. I didn't teach last year. I didn't teach that last year, but I think I taught some years back. I'll see. I'll see from my materials if there are any exams I've set or that any exams I have. I'll send them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other issue? Okay, looks like there's no other issue. Yeah, so we have 2 more lectures. Please finish your coursework properly and let those who are not present know that we are going full steam ahead. Alima, you have an issue?
Excuse me, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Yes, about the coursework. Before we came home for the lockdown, we had done a bit of it, like the preliminary investigation. Now, when we are submitting the entire thing, are we allowed to redo everything such that everything flows chronologically?
Yeah. I am now going to consider your final submission, everything. So feel free to make changes.
Okay.
To whatever you want to change, right?
Okay, sir. Yeah.
I'm sure that this thing is ready before and okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am an evening student, and my question is: should we also go ahead with, because they had also given us the same assignment? So should we also continue with the assignment and hand it to you, because we haven't had any information from the evening lecture?
I see that might be a problem because when you sit your exam, if you register as an evening student, your paper will be taken to the evening lecturer. So he will mark you as missing coursework. You understand? So
Yes.
I'd rather that you follow what the lecturer for the evening classes. You're free to attend my lecture, I have no problem, but follow what the lecturer is following, yeah? Because if you don't do it like that, it will be a problem. Oh, someone's asking for marking guides. You really need marking guides. You don't need them. Discuss. If you discuss among yourselves and you think this is the correct answer, then it's correct. Because I want you to think. You understand? I want you to think. I don't want you to... Huh? Someone is asking, show you the second last slide. Everyone ask. You can type your question. Your audio is not good.
Hello, excuse me.
Pardon?
Excuse me, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're requesting that next time we have the lecture, maybe you could the whole session, because the attendance is at most 40 people and the class is about 100 people. So we're assuming some of them can't afford to be online the whole time during the session. So it's better we record it and send to them the video of what we have discussed.
Fair enough. That's a good idea. I'll do that next time. What is the solution is there for that that I've not presented before? No one has presented before. I don't think anyone presented. We just want to start the presentations when. Have you guys presented?
At least there are some people who presented, about 6 groups.
Oh, really? Yeah, so I'm not going to consider presentations. Well, I'm just going to mark your work. That is why you have to make sure that your work is done well, such that I can mark it, okay? Okay?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Sir, can you consider sending us slides? Okay, before you said you don't send slides, but we were at campus and it was much easier. Right now we are trying to and read, but it's really hard. Maybe if you could send us slides and at least make it a bit fair.
All right, I'll send you the slides. No problem. I'll send you all the slides I've used, and I'll send you past exams. What else do you need? The textbook you have.
We have the text.
Everything. I'll send you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, anything else?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Some people had already submitted some of the deliverables. Does that mean that for the rest of us who hadn't yet submitted, are you going to collect a full package of the work, or they should also submit that bit of deliverables you had collected?
I want you to resubmit everything. So I'm not going to look at the ones you submitted before. I want you to resubmit the full package of the work, all of you. Okay? And that's the one I'm going to mark. Is that clear?
All right. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, and see you next Thursday.
Like, excuse me, sir, maybe one more thing before we finish.
Yeah.
Like, next Thursday, I'm just kindly requesting you to send us the link a little bit earlier.
The link was sent last week.
Good.
Is the class rep here? The same link we're using is the link we shall use throughout. I've scheduled it for all my presentations. Huh?
Excuse me, sir. Maybe to add to that, I sent the document with all the instructions and how we'll be proceeding in the class, but I don't think read through all of it, and I kept telling everyone that that's where the link is. So please reread it again, such that next time have more information and can access the link earlier.
So everything I've sent to this document, I've sent the course outline and the link that we're going to be using and the time and the areas we're going to be discussing. Please use that. Eh? That's how we planned it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. If you have a problem, please feel free to write me an email and I'll do a response. Otherwise, have a nice evening.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Please subscribe to my channel. Bye.